I want you to try a quick mental exercise with me. Just look out your window or picture your front yard.
Okay.
You probably see a tree, maybe big oak, a pine, whatever. And when you look at it, your brain just sort of categorizes it as scenery.
Right. It's a static object, like a rock,
It's just there.
which is a very comforting illusion right up until the moment gravity decides otherwise.
Exactly. And that is the tension we're exploring today. We're looking at this fascinating stack of guides and articles from John Constantine at El Monte Tree Service. And the core idea here is that we need to stop looking at trees as decorations and start seeing them as what they actually are.
Which is what?
Massive biological machines that operate under immense structural stress.
It's a total shift in perspective. You're moving from just, an aesthetic appreciation to a real structural assessment.
Right.
Because, as Constantine points out, a 50-foot tree isn't just a plant. It's a 6-ton column of water and wood. And it's held up by this complex tension system.
And nobody engineered it to code.
Exactly. It had to figure it out all by itself.
And unlike a car, it doesn't have a check engine light. There's no dashboard that just flashes red when the roots are rotting.
Well, there is a dashboard, but it's written in a language that most homeowners don't speak.
Okay.
The tree is constantly signaling its status, its health, its structural integrity, its stress levels. Our job today, based on this whole From Healthy to Hazard series, is to teach you how to read that dashboard.
Right. We're aiming for literacy. The goal is that by the end of this deep dive, you can walk out your front door, look at that massive shade tree you've been parking your car under for 5 years, and know immediately if it's an asset or if it's become a liability.
And this isn't just academic. The phrase high-stakes game of property damage roulette comes up in the research.
Yeah, we're talking about preventing catastrophic failure.
We really are.
So let's organize this biologically. We're going to do a full body scan, starting from the bottom and working our way up against gravity.
Let's start with the foundation. The roots,
The anchor, as the text calls it.
and also the digestive tract. It's doing double duty.
It really is. Now, I found the section on soil heaving particularly striking, because it sounds like a geology term, right? But in a suburban lawn, it implies something terrifying is happening.
It is pure physics. Think of a tree as a giant lever. The trunk and canopy are the long arm of that lever sticking up into the wind.
And the roots are the weight holding it down.
The roots are the weight holding the short arm down in the soil. So when you see soil heaving, and I mean literally a mound of earth lifting up on one side of the base, it means the fulcrum is failing.
The lever is moving.
Right. The roots on the opposite side have likely snapped or pulled free, and the root plate is physically lifting out of the ground. The tree is actively tipping over.
Wow.
It might be happening over weeks or months, but structurally, the fall has already begun.
So if you see fresh cracks in the soil or a mound that wasn't there last season, that's not a landscaping issue. That's an evacuation issue.
Absolutely. That is a critical structural failure. But there's another roost signal that is so much slower, much quieter, and honestly, a bit creepier.
The death mushroom.
The death mushroom, Armillarian and Ganoderma.
Yes, the presence of those fungal conks, those hard, shelf-like mushrooms growing at the base of the tree.
Or on the root flares.
I think the common assumption is that mushrooms they pop up because it rained. It feels like a surface-level thing.
Right.
But the research here emphasizes that the mushroom is just the fruiting body. It's like the apple on the tree. The actual tree of the fungus is deep inside the wood.
Exactly. By the time you see that conk on the outside, the mycelium has been digesting the tree from the inside for years. And it's not just eating the wood randomly. It consumes cellulose and lignin.
And lignin is essentially the glue, right? The thing that gives it strength.
It's the concrete. Cellulose is the rebar, lignin is the concrete. These fungi literally dissolve the glue holding the tree up, so you end up with a condition called butt rot.
That's a terrifying image.
It is, because the tree might still have green leaves. The outer sapwood, the plumbing, is still intact. But the structural core, the heartwood, has turned into a soft, spongy oatmeal.
The plumbing works, but the bones are gone.
And that's why professionals use tools like a resistograph. It's a drill with a very fine needle that measures the resistance of the wood. It can graph exactly how much solid wood is left versus how much is rot.
Because you can't tell just by looking at the bark.
You can't.
Speaking of things we do to roots, we have to touch on the mulch volcano. This seems to be a huge pet peeve for every arborist I've ever read about.
It is the most common way homeowners unintentionally kill their own trees.
It's that aesthetic choice of just piling mulch 2 feet high up the trunk. like a little mountain.
And it's suffocating.
Oh.
Tree bark on the trunk is designed to be in the air, not underwater or under a pile of damp mulch. When you bury the root flare, that wider part where the trunk enters the ground, you trap moisture against the bark.
Which causes rot.
It causes rot, which lets pathogens in, but it also suffocates the roots underneath. They need oxygen exchange.
So you're choking the tree and rotting its skin at the same time?
All in the name of making the yard look tidy. If you take one thing away from this section, let the flare breathe, you should be able to see that curve where the trunk becomes roots.
Okay, let's move up the organism. We're at the trunk. This is the column that supports thousands and thousands of pounds. We're looking for cracks, but not just the natural texture of the bark.
No, we're looking for seams. A seam is a vertical crack that goes deeper than the bark, penetrating right into the wood cylinder itself. It means the tree is under so much torque or tension that it's literally ripping its own fibers apart.
And there's a specific warning in the El Monte Guide about opposite cracks.
That's the shear failure scenario. If you see a vertical crack on the north side and another one directly opposite on the south side, the tree is effectively splitting in half.
Wow.
It's not a solid cylinder anymore. It's two semicircles just sort of balancing against each other. That's a critical hazard.
Okay, what about cavities? The hollow tree. This is tricky because I feel like culturally we see hollow trees as kind of charming.
Yeah, a home for squirrels.
Right, but
Right.
structurally it's just a pipe.
It is a pipe. And pipes can be very strong. I mean, think of a bicycle frame. It's hollow, but it's rigid. However, there's a limit to how thin the walls can get before they buckle.
And Constantine introduces a specific metric here, the 30% rule.
I found this really helpful.
Me too. Break down how we apply that.
So imagine you take a cross-section of the tree. You have the hollow center, and you have the ring of solid, healthy wood on the outside. The shell.
Okay.
For the tree to be safe, that shell needs to be at least 30% of the total radius.
So if I have a tree that's, say, 20 inches wide, that's a 10-inch radius, I need at least, what, 3 inches of solid wood all the way around?
Roughly, yes. And that's the absolute minimum. If the shell gets thinner than that, the tree loses its ability to handle wind load.
Because it can't flex anymore.
Exactly. Trees survive storms by flexing. If the wall is too thin, it just kinks and snaps like a dry reed.
And the scary part is, a tree with a 10% shell can still look fully green and healthy from the outside.
Which is why the visual inspection also needs to look for cankers. A canker is just a localized dead spot on the trunk. You'll see sunken bark or bark that is peeling away in sheets.
Although the guide does note, for trees like sycamores or birches, peeling is normal.
Right, context is everything. But on an oak or a maple, if you see a large sunken patch of dead bark that wraps more than halfway around the circumference,
More than half.
the tree is in serious trouble. It means the vascular system on that whole side of the tree is dead. It's functionally disconnected from the roots.
Okay, let's keep climbing. We're in the canopy now. The guide mentions that the top of the tree is often the first place to signal that something is wrong at the bottom.
It's a hydraulic system.
Yep.
If the roots is failing or the pipes in the trunk are clogged, the water pressure drops. And where is the pressure lowest?
The furthest point from the source, the very top.
The top. This explains dieback.
Right. If you look at a tree and the very top branches are bare, just dead wood, while the lower branches are green, that tree is retrenching.
It's abandoning the penthouse because it can't afford the water bill. It's a clear sign of decline.
But there's another canopy signal that I think is even more counterintuitive, epicormic sprouting.
Yes. This trips people up constantly.
Because you see these clusters of small, thin branches shooting directly out of the main trunk or the thick lower limbs, and it looks lush. It looks like the tree is growing vigorously.
It looks like life, but it's actually panic.
Explain that distinction. That's fascinating.
A healthy tree grows from the tips of its branches, the apical buds. That's the plan. Epicormic sprouts are adventitious growth. They come from these latent buds underneath the bark that the tree keeps in reserve just for emergencies.
So when it shoots those out,
It's saying my primary canopy isn't doing the job. I'm starving. I need to make solar panels right here, right now, or I'm going to die.
so it's not growth, it's emergency triage.
It is. If your tree looks like it's wearing a fuzzy green sweater on its trunk, it is screaming for help. It's a stress response to severe dysfunction, usually related to root loss or soil compaction,
And then, of course, there's the color of the leaves, chlorosis.
which is just a fancy word for yellowing. But specifically, yellowing when it should be green. It usually signals a nutrient deficiency, often iron or manganese, But deeper than that, it signals that the tree's whole uptake system is broken. The nutrients might be in the soil, but the tree can't drink them.
Okay, we've covered the biology, the rot, the fungus, the leaves. I want to shift now to the physics of it all. The movement, the lean.
This is the most common reason homeowners call an arborist. My tree is crooked.
But the guide makes this crucial distinction between a tree that leans and a tree that is actively leaning.
Exactly. A tree that has grown at an angle for 20 years is usually fine. That's phototropism. It's just growing towards the light. The tree actually builds what's called reaction wood, reinforced, denser wood, on the side that needs it to support that angle.
So it's engineered itself to be crooked.
It has. So the danger isn't the angle itself, it's the change.
Movement is the enemy.
Yes. Was it straight last year? Is it 5 degrees further over this year? That's why we go back to the roots. If you see that soil cracking we talked about, or if the grass on the uphill side looks stretched or torn,
it means the anchor is dragging.
Gravity is winning. The guide uses the 15-degree rule as a sort of general threshold. If a previously straight tree leans more than 15 degrees, the center of gravity has shifted so far that the root plate can likely no longer support it.
But this is where the concept of the target becomes the defining factor. And this is a really practical point for everyone listening.
It's the difference between a hazard and just nature. A tree leaning at 45 degrees with rot and fungus is not a hazard if it's in the middle of a 100-acre woods.
Right, it's just a dying tree.
It becomes a hazard when you put a bedroom under it. Risk assessment is a formula. Probability of failure times consequence of failure. If the consequence is crushing a prize-winning rosebush, that's one thing. If the consequence is crushing a minivan with a family inside, the tolerance for risk drops to 0.
You have to identify the target.
You have to.
Let's talk about the things that are actively hunting the tree. The invaders. The guide calls them silent killers.
Insects and disease.
The emerald ash borer is the famous one right now. But what I found interesting is how it kills. It's not just putting holes in the wood.
No, it's girdling the tree. It's an attack on the vascular system. The larvae of these borers tunnel through the cambium layer, that thin living layer just under the bark where all the transport happens. They effectively cut the connection between the roots and the leaves.
And the visual checklist item here is frass.
Sawdust. Exactly. Yeah. If you look in the bark crevices and see little piles of light-colored sawdust, something is drilling.
Okay.
And for the emerald ash borer specifically, you look for exit holes that are distinctly D-shaped.
D-shaped. Got it.
Other borers leave round holes. But if you see the D, that's the signature.
And on the disease front, you have things like oak wilt or Dutch elm disease. The text describes these as a botanical heart attack.
It's a very apt metaphor. These are vascular wilts. The fungus gets into the water-conducting vessels and just clogs them up. The tree tries to wall off the infection, but in doing so, it blocks its own water supply.
So the key symptom is speed.
Extreme speed. If a massive oak tree goes from healthy green to brown and wilted in 2 weeks in the middle of July, that is not dry weather.
That's a stroke.
It's a stroke. It's happening system-wide. And you need to act immediately, not just to save that tree, it's often too late, but to sever the root connections to neighboring trees.
Because it travels underground.
It spreads through root grafts.
Okay, we've talked about whole trees failing, but there's a specific category of danger that happens within living trees. Deadwood.
And the guy uses the term widowmakers.
A very grim term.
But historically accurate. These are massive dead limbs just hanging high in the canopy.
And the assumption is that these fall during storms. But the guide talks about summer limb drop.
Which is terrifying because it happens on calm days. We don't fully understand the mechanism, but the theory is that on hot, still afternoons, the water tension in the wood changes, or it becomes brittle, and suddenly, snap, 1,000-pound limb drops with 0 wind warning.
So the visual check here is simpler. Just look for the bleached bones.
Look for white, barkless wood, or a branch that has no leaves when everything else is lush and green. If you see that hanging over a walkway or a driveway, it needs to be pruned.
Yesterday. This brings us to the final and maybe most painful part of this, the legal and financial reality, the duty of care.
This is where we leave biology and enter the courtroom.
Most people assume that if their tree falls on their neighbor's garage, their insurance covers it. It's an act of God.
And they're often very, very wrong. If a healthy tree is ripped out by a tornado, yes, that's an act of God. But insurance adjusters are trained to look for negligence. If that tree falls, And the adjuster comes out and sees a massive old fungal conk on the base, or sees that the tree had been dead for 2 years.
They realize it wasn't the wind.
They realize the wind was just the final nudge. The cause was your failure to maintain the property. They can deny the claim.
And now you're personally liable.
For the neighbor's garage, their car, everything.
So inspecting your trees isn't just about, loving nature. It's about asset protection.
It's due diligence. Having a paper trail, an annual inspection from a certified arborist, is your best defense.
Speaking of arborists, the guide is very firm on the DIY question. It basically says, don't.
It's not just about safety, though. Chainsaws and ladders are a very bad mix for amateurs. It's about hygiene.
Hygiene.
Yes. If you take a rusty saw from your garage that you used to cut up some dead wood 3 years ago, and you use it to prune a live oak,
You're injecting pathogens.
directly into the tree's bloodstream. You are performing surgery with dirty instruments. You could be the one killing the tree.
Wow.
Professionals sanitize their tools. They know where to make the cut so the tree can seal the wound. A bad flush cut can prevent the tree from healing, leading to rot that kills the tree 5 years down the line.
Plus, they understand the local context. The guide specifically mentions the Santa Ana wines in the El Monte and San Gabriel Valley area.
And that local knowledge is key. A tree that is perfectly safe in a sheltered canyon might be a ticking time bomb if it's exposed to those high-velocity Santa Ana winds. An arborist looks at the wind sail effect of the canopy and knows how much thinning is needed to reduce that drag.
So prevention is cheaper than the cure.
Always. Proactive pruning and cabling cost hundreds. Emergency removal of a fallen tree from a crushed roof costs thousands, tens of thousands.
Let's bring this all back to you, the listener. We've covered a massive amount of ground, from fungal biology to liver physics to insurance law. What is the one thing you want people to do when this is over?
I want them to go outside and change their filter. Stop looking at the scenery. Start looking at the machine.
Run the checklist we just went through.
Start at the bottom. Are the roots heaving? Is there a mushroom? Look at the trunk. Is there a double crack? Is there a hollow with a thin shell? Look up at the canopy. Is it dying back? Is it panic sprouting?
And ask yourself, what is the target?
Exactly. If that tree fails, what does it hit?
This isn't about being paranoid. It's about being aware. Because as Constantine's articles make so clear, trees almost never fail without a warning.
They talk to us.
We just have to listen.
Noticing a small pile of sawdust today gives you options. Ignoring it leaves you with consequences.
That's a powerful place to leave it. Thank you for walking us through the whispers of the trees.
My pleasure.
And to you listening, go check your roots. We'll see you in the next deep dive. Stay safe.